Hello everyone, welcome to Barça News. It is May 22nd, 2026, and Florentino Perez and Real Madrid in more legal trouble as a second complaint has been filed against them. Also, Hamza Abdelkarim, Barcelona ready to activate his option to buy. And finally, Hector Fort set to come back and participate in the preseason. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Bo, and we'll begin today's video with the news that Real Madrid and Florentino Perez are in more legal trouble as a second complaint has been filed against them. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, a few days ago, or I think it was a week ago or maybe two, Florentino Perez went on an unhinged rant where he tried to justify his horrible management of the club's failures on and off the pitch, with the sporting project, with the huge debt that they have, with the total disaster that the stadium has been. And well, he blamed it all on Negreira, saying that the referees are getting rich of Barcelona's money. In other words, hinting that they are being bribed. And of course, saying that, well, Real Madrid have been, that the referees have stolen 7 La Liga titles away from Real Madrid. Now, those statements did not go unnoticed, because the Spanish Association of Football Referees filed a complaint against Florentino Perez and Real Madrid with the Royal Spanish Football Federation Competition Committee, asking for sanctions. And now they have filed a second complaint, and this one is with Spain's Anti-Violence Commission. Now, the difference between these two complaints, the first one was just against Florentino. This one is against Florentino and Real Madrid TV, because as you guys might recall, for the last 3-4 years, Real Madrid TV, every week they've been publishing documentaries about whatever ref they get assigned for that weekend, accusing that ref of, not being, or I should say, purposely punishing them, right? Because Boohoo, Real Madrid, apparently they're victims of the referees, even though, factually speaking, they've been the club that have benefited the most out of refereeing errors in the entire history of football. But let's look at the statement of the Spanish Association of Football Referees, as it's known by its Spanish initials ASAF, because this is what they said when declaring that they had filed a complaint. The complaints have been filed respectively against Mr. Perez and against Real Madrid TV and Real Madrid CF as a club, of course. Within the institutional line of action that ASAF maintains in defense of dignity, integrity, and protection of Spanish referees, the association considers that the repeated use of certain public messages, as well as the continuous dissemination of content that systematically questions or discredits the refereeing collective, contributes to the deterioration of the climate of respect necessary for the proper development of sporting activity, and may encourage situations of tension, hostility, or violence towards referees. To protect the people who carry out refereeing duties and guarantee that they can perform their work in an environment of safety, respect, and coexistence, we affirm our commitment to using legal and institutional channels as tools to combat any manifestation of violence, harassment, or attempts to discredit refereeing. So there you have it, folks. The official statement of ASAF announcing a lawsuit against Florentino, Real Madrid TV, and Real Madrid CF, or the whole club, for what they have been doing with their public messaging of consistently saying that the referees are corrupt, that the referees are against them, that the referees are accepting briberies, without, of course, any evidence to back that up. And my question to ASAF is, why did it take you this long? Now, Florentino Perez's statements, that's recent, of course. That happened a week or two ago. But what Real Madrid TV have been doing, they've been doing that for years now. What took you this long? I mean, Royal Spanish Football Federation even went as far as changing the rules of when they announced the assigned referees for a match. They used to do it, I think, a week before, and now they do it like 2 or 3 days before or the day before to prevent that. And it's like, why are you changing your rules to accommodate the constant attacks being done by Real Madrid TV instead of punishing them for it? So I'm glad this lawsuit is filed, but I mean, you guys are also responsible for this, because Real Madrid TV have been doing this for years, and they've continued to do this for years because you've allowed them to do it for years. And we've seen how it has benefited them, because referees are now scared. They're terrified of ruling anything against Real Madrid. And instead, well, we've seen what they've done to us, right? But anyways, I'm glad this lawsuit has been filed. I hope that they go after Real Madrid for everything they got. Even I hope Laporta files one on behalf of Barcelona, because these people need to learn that they can't just go around saying whatever the hell they want, throwing tantrums instead of accepting the reality that their club is in ruin because of them. Not because of referees, not because of Negreira, not because of Barca, but because you, Mr. Perez, are a terrible president who has ran that club into the ground. So be a grown-up, assume your responsibility, and instead of blaming everyone else. Now, speaking of Negreira, we do have a new development in the Negreira case because, as I told you several weeks ago, the court ordered a forensic examination of Mr. Negreira to see whether he would be competent enough to testify in the case, because he does suffer from Alzheimer's. Well, now we do have the results of that forensic exam, and well, the doctors have ruled that Mr. Negreira is not competent to testify because his Alzheimer's prevents him from truly understanding what the legal proceedings are, what they're about, and what the ramifications are. So another big blow to the Negreira case. This, of course, is concerning the prosecutor's office investigation into the Negreira case, because, as you know, there was a parallel investigation being done by the tax authority, because that's how it all began. It began with the tax authority doing an audit of Negreira and his companies. Of course, the tax authority has already said that there's no proof or evidence that the money that Barcelona paid to Negreira for those refereeing reports ever made it to the refs, or that they ever influenced the competition or anything like that. So that investigation has completely absolved Barcelona. We still have the prosecutor's office investigation, which has been going on for 3 years now. It's been postponed 7, 8, or I can't even remember how many times at the request of Real Madrid, because, of course, they know there's nothing there, but they want to keep using it as an excuse for their failures. And well, now this investigation suffering another blow because Negreira himself will not be able to testify. So hopefully this investigation will come to a conclusion pretty soon, because, again, 3 years into it, they haven't found a single shred of evidence of any bribery, corruption, that Barcelona influenced the competition or anything else. And like I've said a million times before, you didn't even need an investigation. Just go back and watch how Barcelona played those years and tell me, did they really need the help of referees? Of course not. Everybody knows that. But of course, when it comes to Real Madrid's failures, it's much easier to blame it on someone else rather than, being a grown-up and saying, well, we failed because we effed up. But of course, that's very good for us, because as I used to say when we had Xabi as our coach, as long as they don't accept that it's their fault that they made mistakes, they're never going to improve, right? Because what's there to improve? It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing to improve. It's someone else's fault. So that's great for us. I hope Real Madrid continue to blame it all on Negreira, because as long as they do that, they're never going to admit that they effed up. They're never going to try to fix it. There's nothing to fix. It's Negreira, right? So please continue with the Negreira narrative. Now, on to the next bit of news, because it's reported that Barcelona are set to activate the option to buy in Hamza Abdelkarim's contract. Now, as you know by now, Barcelona signed the 18-year-old Egyptian center forward from Al Ahly, I think it's Al Ahly in Egypt, this past winter transfer market on loan. There's an option to buy worth 3 million euros. And even though Hamza Abdelkarim had a little bit of a slow start in Barcelona with that serious injury that he suffered, ever since he recovered, he's been absolutely killing it. In fact, in his first match back, he scored a hat-trick. And now Barcelona are convinced that this player obviously has a lot of potential. It's reported that all the coaches and staff in the academy are incredibly impressed, not just with his performance on and off the pitch, but they're also very impressed with his professionalism, with his personality, and even ability to adapt quickly. So everybody's happy with Hamza Abdelkarim at the club, and as such, they're set to activate his option to buy worth 3 million euros. And they're even saying that he could participate in the preseason with Hansi Flick. Now, of course, I think this is more than the right move, because not only is Hamza Abdelkarim looking incredibly promising, but his value has already gone up since arriving in Barcelona. In fact, there have been a lot of European clubs asking about him. He just got called up to the World Cup with Egypt. That is huge. That's definitely going to skyrocket his value. So even if he doesn't end up being good enough for the first team, let's say, there's a lot of value here. We could always sell them for profit. Of course, that's not what we do. We're not a selling club. We look to sign players so they can stay and win us trophies. But again, I think this $3 million for this very promising player, it's a no-brainer. Sign him. Hopefully, he becomes the future center forward of the first team. And if not, again, you can always sell him for a lot more because he's already making a lot of headlines and getting a lot of attention. Now, speaking of the preseason, we will end today's video with the news that Hansi Flick wants to see Hector Fort participate in the preseason come this summer. Now, Hector Fort went on a loan to Elche during this season. He had a little bit of a slow start, and then once he started gaining more and more prominence and performing better, he unfortunately suffered a shoulder injury that saw him out from December to April. But now he's back in action, and even though his loan hasn't been necessarily very earth-shattering because of that injury, still Hansi Flick believes that Hector Fort has grown enough and developed enough during this loan that he wants to see him participate in the preseason to see whether this is a player that can be, part of the first team, which of course is incredible news. I'm all for testing our players to see, whether they're good enough or not. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with the right back position because we know Hector Fort is going to participate in the preseason. We've seen Eric Garcia perform really well there. And of course, there's Xavi Espart, who Hansi Flick had compared him to Philip Lam. He says that Xavi Espart has a guaranteed spot on the first team because he really likes him and he believes he has a lot of potential. And then there's Koundé, whose performance has been getting worse and worse. So now we have four right backs for four players for two positions or two slots for that right back position. What's going to happen? Who's going to stay? Who's going to leave? Does this mean that Koundé could be out? It's definitely going to be an interesting summer for that position. That is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, Visca Barça.